Hey guys, this is James. I wanted to do a bit more of Macbeth today. I'm finally back to my rhythm after getting back from shooting a little television. Sorry, it's been a little while in coming, but we should be back to doing this every week again. So we left off in Act One, Scene Three, and in the top of that we see our witches again. And they are bragging about how they are tormenting different humans. And I think that I mentioned earlier in one of these messages, that these recordings, that I thought that the witches should be just snipping body parts on the battlefield. This is the scene where we should be doing that. I had forgotten. The previous time that I had talked about that is a very short scene, and as long as the witches aren't dancing around in a circle in a laughable fashion, I think that scene kind of takes care of itself. But this scene is much longer, and they really go on and on about how they're torturing different humans. And if you have the witches like dancing around going, "Oh, I got that guy," like that, it's really laughable and ridiculous. And so to give the witches their horror and their magic and their mystery, I think that they should just be talking shop. It's just office talk. They're kind of almost bored. So they're just snipping bodies on the battlefield after the battle. And we do that. So then they say, "Oh, what's that noise? Macbeth is coming." And then they F off. And in comes Macbeth and Banquo, who are coming back from battle and going to see the king. So we have heard about Macbeth and Banquo. We've learned that they're badass warriors. We've not met them yet. And here they come on stage. I'm going to use these. I'm middle-aged, deal with it. So they come on. And right off the top, Macbeth says, "So foul and fair a day I have not seen." Now that's just a small line, but it speaks to the mind of Elizabethan England at the time. As I said before, gunpowder was it was the magical, horrible thing of the day. It was a lot like nuclear weapons were back in the 50s. Like, if you set this stuff off, we don't know what's going to happen. It might tear the fabric of reality. And that was in the mind of London at the time. Like, we almost ripped the universe apart with gunpowder. And so things being twisted, reality being contorted, is something that was on Shakespeare's mind. And so foul and fair a day I have not seen is kind of an interesting line. Anyway, it's the side note. So right off the top, right away, the witches appear again, and they are they're described as, "You look like women, but you have beards." So I don't know if you're men or women. It's kind of weird. It's kind of cool. And they tell Macbeth that he's going to be the Thane of Cawdor and the king. So Macbeth at this point is the Thane. This gets a little bit in the weeds, guys. Sorry, but a Thane is like a duke. He's not a king. He's like below a king, but he still has a castle. He still has lands. He's still royalty, and he owes fealty to the king. But he's kind of like a mini king, a Thane, a duke. So Macbeth already is Thane of Glamis. And the witches say, "Oh, by the way, you're about to become Thane of Cawdor, and after that, you're going to be king." At which point, Macbeth goes, and Banquo says, "Hey, what's up? Why are you looking afraid at this good news?" And what Macbeth can't tell Duncan really is that he's been thinking of killing the king. He's already thinking about it, of course. Duncan's an old man. And Banquo says, "Hey, what about me? Why don't you tell me what's up with me?" And the witches tell him that you are lesser than Macbeth and greater, not so happy, yet much happier, Thou shalt get kings, which means thou shalt be the father of kings, though thou be none. So your offspring are gonna be kings, but you, Banquo, won't be any. That's important for later. And then they leave, and Banquo says this interesting thing. They kind of evaporate on stage, and Banquo says, "The earth hath bubbles as the water has, and these are of them. Whither are they vanished?" That's an important line to me because it means they're magic, guys. You can't do or you shouldn't do a production of Macbeth where the witches don't have full magical powers. It's right there in the script, and I have seen productions where they try to take that away from the witches, and I really think it's a mistake. So then, right after that, Ross and Angus come in, who are also two Thanes, also in the service of the king, also having backed up the king in this battle that we just were talking about. And they tell Macbeth that that Duncan, the king, has given him the thaneship of Cawdor. At which point, Macbeth turns to the audience and just says, "Oh my God, it's true. What these witches said was true. They just told me I was going to become Thane of Cawdor, and now, just a couple minutes later, I am. I guess I am going to become king," and he gets very excited. And he gives a speech to the audience where he is talking about, wow, why I've just gotten this really great news. Why is my heart pounding? Why am I sweating? Why am I about kind of having a panic attack at this news? And he finally says that he's not going to kill the king. He says, let me find it here. Yeah, this is so good. Macbeth says, "This supernatural soliciting cannot be ill, cannot be good. If ill, why hath it given me earnest of success, commencing in a truth, I am Thane of Cawdor? If good, why do I yield to that suggestion whose horrid image doth unfix my hair, and make my seated heart knock at my ribs against the use of nature? Present fears are less than horrible imaginings. My thought, whose murder is yet but fantastical, shakes so my single state of man that function is smothered in a surmise, and nothing is but what is not." And then he says, "If chance will have me king, why, chance may crown me without my stir." So he says, okay, you know what? I'm freaking out. If the witches want me to be king, if fortune is going to have me king, then fortune's going to do it. I'm not going to help it along, because something in me is telling me that I am starting down a dark road. So he makes a very wise choice at that point. So, and then, they leave. And then in scene 4, they leave to go to Duncan. So Duncan has called all the Thanes for a party to celebrate the fact that they've won this war, and Duncan is still king. So they F off to the party. So then, in scene 4, we're at the party. We see Duncan, and he's asking about whether or not the traitors are dead yet. His son Malcolm is telling him that they are. And Duncan says this really interesting line. He says, "There's no art to find a man's construction in the face. He was a gentleman on whom I built an absolute trust." Now, he's talking about the traitor, the guy that tried to take over the country. And Duncan is basically saying, I could not tell that he was a traitor or had traitorous thoughts by looking at him. Now, from an Elizabethan standpoint, that's his effing job. That's Shakespeare putting a bright light saying Duncan is a bad king. And the whole Elizabethan audience would be like, oh, get rid of him. He's just inviting another civil war. He's an idiot or too old to think or whatever it is. But that's like a big one. So Then Macbeth and Banquo and Ross and Angus, they've arrived, and Duncan heaps praise on them. And Macbeth and Banquo are like, "Oh, you're cool. We love you too," and all of that. And then Duncan turns around and says, "By the way, I'm going to make my son Malcolm king. I am going to name him the Prince of Cumberland." Now, everyone in the audience knows that in Scotland, one of the things you had to be king in Scotland was to become Prince of Cumberland. And in doing this, Duncan is screwing over every Thane there, and he knows it. He's upending hundreds of years of tradition. The tradition being that to become a king in Scotland, you have to go to war and kill the king on the battlefield. And Duncan is saying, "Oh, by the way, we're just not going to do that anymore. I'm going to name thy young son Malcolm." Well, I guess he's probably 25 or so. "I'm going to name him king, give him the Prince of Cumberland." Screw you. By the way, he's also just said, "Thanks a lot, all you Thanes that spent all your money and gathered armies and backed me up. I'm going to give you thanks today. I'm going to say thanks, but I'm not going to give you any money. I'm not going to like replenish your coffers for coming out here today." So he's screwing everyone over in the hugest way. And then Macbeth turns on a dime and turns to the audience and says, "Screw it. He's naming his son this Prince of Cumberland. I'm going to kill that bastard. That's it. I've changed my mind." And he marches off. And that is the scene. I think I'm just checking here. Yeah. So, yep, that's it. Macbeth says, "This is a great speech." So Duncan has just said, "Oh, I'm going to name my son the Prince of Cawdor." Everyone goes like that. And then Macbeth just turns to the audience and goes, "The Prince of Cumberland? That is a step on which I must fall down, or else o'erleap, for in my way it lies. Stars, hide your fires. Let not light see my black and deep desires. The eye wink at the hand. Yet let it be which the eye fears when 'tis done to see." So he's pissed, and the language goes super dark, and he's just like, "I'm going to kill him." So we see Macbeth in a quick succession being very logical and very wise in the previous scene, and says, if chance may have me king, why chance may crown me without my stir. I'm going to be chill about this. Then we see him getting fucked over, and then we see him saying, "Screw that guy, he's dead." Okay, so that's 13 minutes today. It's just getting longer and longer. Okay, have fun with that, guys. And I will see you. We'll do this again on Monday, okay? It's good to be back.